We're at the stage of the game finally where I feel like I want to go ahead and give this my review. I've been wanting to review this for a while. This game has been a long series in the making, despite us, what is this part? Sorry, I don't know what part this is. Part 4. So only having 4 parts, but each stream was relatively long. We ended up splitting this into, multi-mission ones. So there's, a good chunk of game, a lot longer than I initially planned out. But obviously that's usually a good thing. You get more value for money. But anyway, let's just get into this review here. Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines 2, the sequel to the first game that came out rather over 20 years ago, back in I believe 2004. So like 21 years ago. We haven't seen this series continue, but it is a direct sequel. But it does have new characters in it. Obviously, it's similar in the fashion to like something like KOTOR 1 and KOTOR 2. While there is references to first characters, they are different, and it's just kind of the lore and the style of the game is back. So this one had a different dev team, obviously. It originally started with one dev team, and then Chinese Room ended up taking it over. So I feel like the game went into a few changes throughout its life cycle, which again, this was one of those concepts. This game was basically in development limbo for a little while it finally got completed. Now, does that make the game worse or better? Is that ever a good thing? Well, I guess we'll find out. First thing I want to get into, though, is I do want to talk about the things that I did enjoy about the game. I've been saying this throughout the series, and it doesn't matter how long, like obviously if you go away from playing the game for a while and you come back, it's got that pull. It's got that lure of the allure of the game is too hard to ignore. It's got this interest to it, this noir feel, this really I don't know, it's a captivating take on Seattle. Even though it's not a very large map and there's not a whole lot in there, there's something about the game that's like, I want to go back to that environment. I want to go back to this world, and I want to continue the story. So it did keep pushing you through it. And again, that whole feeling of it, I think it does have a very, very strong lore and backstory. And obviously the franchise itself is doing most of the heavy lifting when it comes to this game. And for someone who's pretty new to the franchise, I've only played Swan Song. That was my first Vampire the Masquerade game, or at least any knowledge into the Vampire the Masquerade franchise. That was that game, and it was a rubbish game. And people said, no, it might be in the same world, but it's not the same game. So I think you should try out Bloodlines. And honestly, I almost skipped out on this game a couple times. Just figured, I'm not gonna have enough time to play it. I wasn't sure if I was going to be interested in it, but I ended up saying yes. I'm gonna go ahead and sit down and do it. And I'm glad I did play it, just because it does have that really alluring feel. It's got a really solid lore, like I said. It's got interesting characters, and even though I'm pretty new to the world of it, it was pretty easy to follow along with, and and just kind of like put you into this whole franchise and what everything's about. It's not really difficult to learn about things, even though there's a whole bunch of stuff you can figure out or you have to know kind of to get what's going on. It was pretty easy and welcoming of a game to kind of bring you into it. So like I said, it's for someone who's new to the franchise, it's something that's good to follow along with, and you don't really have to play the first game to get into it, as I am proof of that. So I definitely enjoyed the story and the pacing of that, or not the pacing rather, but sorry, the story and the lore of the game that keep me coming back again and again. I will say some of the elements, like I said, the whole I'd say this, like the switch elements between the two characters was interesting. I did like having two different protagonists. One obviously was our main character, but also how their backstories and their stories crossed and tied into each other. And the whole fact that Fabien was in the back of your mind basically the whole time and kind of guiding you along the way. And the flashbacks with Fabien were different. They changed the pace of the game. They were more of an investigatory style to the game, as opposed to just attacking and going through and just based in the story of that. It was more so like, this is as much information about backstory, which took our character to the present, and that was all that information. So if you're really into that backstory lore of this kind of a game, or especially in this storyline, that is a nice addition for that. So I definitely did like the Fabien character. I thought he was very, very strong. Honestly, I think they could have done their own game just on Fabien himself, but based on the limitations of Fabien and what he does, I can see why he was just kind of a secondary character as opposed to being the main. Otherwise, but again, there's a whole lore story behind Fabien that I think is untapped, and I think we could really have a good time learning more about Fabien. So I think that was a strong character as well. Our main character was fine. I had no problem with it, obviously, because it was a male or female choice. You don't really have that direct connection with it because it's either or. So it's more vanilla. Some might consider the main character to look more vanilla. Like I said, it has to accommodate different versions, whether it be male, female. If you look like this, you look like that, or depending on what clan you're in. It all depends, which to that attest, I do like having multiple clans and having multiple clan abilities. I also like that whatever clan you pick, you aren't limited to using that clan abilities for the rest of the game, albeit you do have to do a bit more grinding to unlock those abilities, but you can learn those from other people. So it's almost like the Nomad character is like this super vampire that is able to absorb other people, or sorry, other clans' abilities and use them to their advantage, which I think was really, really cool. So I did like the aspect of having different things and not being like, oh man, this is a big choice. Am I locked in? No, but obviously you do have to do a bit more legwork to get some of these things, but that's fine, I found, because a lot of the time you don't actually need most of the abilities. I'd say I use mostly my clan abilities because it suited my play style the best, but at the same time there were some abilities that I definitely prefer, and I ended up selecting them and using them as I saw fit, but the other ones just were more my style and my style of game, you know what I mean? So one other thing I want to throw out there, obviously there is a lot of bang for your buck too in this one. While this game does push along the territory of AAA price tag, you are going to put in a lot of time to it. Like I said, I'd say this game, I don't know exactly how long this took me. I'd say each stream was a different length. You know, some streams were 7 hours, 6 hours, 8 hours. They were all slightly different in that, you know, in that kind of concept. So if I could guess, I'd say we're kind of teetering around the 30-ish hours, you know, mid 20s to high 30s. If you do absolutely everything, which I pretty much did, you know, I got all the collectibles, I got all the side missions complete alongside the main story. You know, I basically did everything. And obviously the game does encourage you to play the game multiple times, since there are 6 different endings that you can actually get based on whatever choices, and you know, the way you speak to people throughout the game is very, very important. So the one thing you do have to really pay attention to, which I can appreciate this little detail, is if you are choosing, like I'm the kind of person who reads through dialogue and selects every single optional thing to say. Unfortunately, that doesn't always work, because you might be talking to somebody and you might piss them off, which could change that ending. So you can either say something and you're just trying to go through all the lines of dialogue to listen to it all and get all the information you can, but it might bite you in the ass. So it's one of those things where it's like, yes, you can just learn it, but it also really ties into that role-playing aspect, and it wants you to realize who you're talking to, watch what you're saying. Is that what you want out of it? Maybe it is, maybe it's not, or it isn't, excuse me. Obviously, pay attention to that, but every little minor things that you don't think are going to have ramifications will actually change the course of your story. And as we ended up, my story ended up being a lot different than I thought based on how the ending I got. I didn't even once think I would run into that ending. I knew that was an ending. I just didn't know that would be the character that, you know, kind of took over, if you will. So obviously there were a lot of other options, but I think I kind of you know, made my bed in certain times by saying certain things to certain characters that I would have wanted to stay alive, except for, you know, the current prince. I don't really know what happened there, but it is what it is. So anyway, like I said, solid for that. And overall, it was a pretty cool experience in that regard. So now let's go into some of the things that I did not like about the game. Now, unfortunately, this game does suffer from, I'd say, more things wrong with it than I would like. Even though it's an enjoyable experience and we have all those things that it's got going for it, I feel like it's way, they basically bit off more than they could chew with this one. I will say, I think the city, the open worldness of the city, again, I understand what they were doing, but it is very, very much an empty, generic city. Like, it's just this literal sandbox. It does feel kind of like the size of games that would have come out in the, like, I don't know, around this. It honestly does feel like a similar size to a game that came out in the early 2000s, much like its predecessor, you know, in terms of sandbox world, being confined to this location. Now, mind you, it is fairly large, and I'd say it's large enough that if they had enough you know, detail thrown into it, you wouldn't notice that it's on the smaller side. But because there's next to nothing in it, you'll find that you're just kind of going across the city back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Constantly, I would go, oh, your waypoint's on this end. So you end up revisiting the exact same locations over and over and over and over and over again. And they don't really change that much from when you were last there. Obviously, if this is where a character happens to dwell or live, that's where you're going to go and talk to them and advance the story. But unfortunately, it just feels so empty in this world, and I just wish there was just more to it. Otherwise, I would have preferred a much more linear experience rather than an open or a sandbox world. I think this game would have benefited based on the fact that it had to switch developer hands. I think it would have benefited if they shrunk the game and made it more of a linear thing. You could still have that action RPG element to it, but because it wasn't super major, basically, if you think about it, if you took out the open world of this game, does anything really change about the game? Not really, when you really think about it. What the decisions came from where you went, you know, the decisions you made in the main missions. The side missions didn't really matter that much, except for maybe some achievements that you could get. Speaking of the side missions, again, there was no thought to them. They weren't that special. Each character gave you the exact same type of side mission, regardless of which one you did. You know, whether you're delivering a package, you're hunting out a single vampire, or you have to trace a vampire and try and take them out without, you know, breaking the masquerade. It was literally the three same things across different stages of the entire game. So after a certain sequence of games and you're back to free roaming, you can do them. And they weren't like not enjoyable per se, but they were just really repetitive and there wasn't a lot of like substance to them. I feel like this game really would have benefited if it had actual side missions, like proper side missions with its own little mini story where you had to do something unique or investigate something, not just do the exact same action over and over and over again. It's basically repetitive fetch quests across the map. So very, very frustrating in that regard. Now, one thing I will say as well, this game is quite long, as I mentioned. It's not like long, like insanely long. I've played much longer games. It's actually a really good length, but there are a lot of moments where the pacing is just absolutely ruined. Now, I did mention I like the Fabien sections. I like learning about Fabien, but Fabien sections were so overly long and drawn out, especially considering all you do in these Fabien sections is talk to people to find, investigate. You can investigate things, but not really. You just tap it and you find an item and he says something about it, but you don't actually investigate. You don't like, I wish there was more of a crime scene investigative element to it where you could like look at stuff and actually look for evidence instead of just hitting a button and be like, yep, that's the evidence. You know what I mean? And other than that, you're just walking end to end constantly back and forth, where you have to use your abilities to like troll people, kind of like get their guards down, read their minds, make them seem like you're somebody else, or talk to inanimate objects, which is fine and good, but for some reason they added an element where they treat them like the traditional powers for fire's powers. Fire's powers that need to recharge and you have to feed to replenish them. Well, the thing is, they did the exact same thing for Fabien's moments, but the thing is, there's no combat for Fabien. He just investigates. So if you don't have enough and you don't have one of the potions that'll refill your abilities, you have to go out of the way, find one of those vessels, feed off of them, and then come back and continue it. It was just unnecessary back and forthness that just made the game last longer in a bad way. Like, it was just like, man, if these Fabien sections were halved, I think they would have been much better. But you're actually spending sometimes 1 to 2 hours on a single Fabien mission. And considering it's some of the most slow-paced elements, it was very, very hard to keep up with it, considering all his stuff was just dialogue. So a lot of it was dialogue, some investigating, but very, very little. And to the point where it's like, this isn't actually that fun the longer you played as, as Fabien. Fabien's a good character, but unfortunately they gave him such a bad segment for this game. The first one was interesting, but it didn't last that long. I felt like, okay, let's retrace the steps. Why is Fabien in our head? You know what I mean? It gives us an idea of who Fabien is and where he came from and what his connection is to this whole story. That's all nice, and it's nice. It adds to the story. Like I said, I like the Fabien character, but it's just that those moments where you play as Fabien, it completely derails the momentum of the game, especially at the end there, considering that that second last mission, a major incident happened. Now you're back to the exact same thing. Walk here, walk back, feed off the vessel, walk back, use your ability, walk, talk. It's like, what happened with the pacing? So in terms of that, the pacing is absolutely all over the map and it doesn't know what it wants to do half the time. And I feel like they just spent time on things that didn't need to have time spent on it. You know what I mean? It just completely killed the pacing of the game and it pulled me out of the story. So I could be deep into it facing a boss or a major incident happens and then it's back in Fabien and it's like, what just happened? Well, I thought we were just having this crazy fight. Now we're going back in time again, finding out this, and it's just like you're all over the place and you're just like, man, this is too messy. It's just too all over the place and it just doesn't perform in the way you want it to. And like I said, it does kill the pacing and it really does pull you away from the game. And like I said, this game sucks you in, but it also pushes you away at the same time. So like after you've been playing it for a few hours, you're like, okay, I need a break. I'll come back to it in a few days. And then you remember the good things, the things that were fun and alluring about it, and it brings you back in. But unfortunately, there were so many of these things that just kind of killed it, which again, I feel like they could have filled so much more stuff with the open world. I mean, using the abilities, climbing on the rooftops, there was really no point to doing that except for getting the collectibles that were there. Otherwise, you might as well stay off the roof. There's almost no reason. There's a few handful of locations, like the clubs or the hideouts or the bars or the headquarters or the observatories, all those things, like they're all like plopped on the map and they all have a lot of detail. Everything else in between is very generic, and you just basically, I'm like, this looks exactly the same. So it's almost like there are elements of the game that should have been completely slashed from it, and they should have put their time into developing the stuff that actually did work and just spend more time on it. So I know that was a lot to get out, but again, there's a lot to this game that I wanted to talk about. One more thing I almost forgot, and I don't know how I couldn't. The combat. The combat is very annoying and very unforgiving, especially in the early stages of the game. Apparently, based on how the first game was, they actually tweaked the combat a bit, and they obviously removed elements as well. Having melee-only combat and using your powers is the major thing. They want you to look at like you're this absolute beast, you know, you're this machine that doesn't need guns or anything, but instead you use your abilities. You use your abilities to, you know, like manipulate the battlefield. So, you know, you can use your telekinesis to steal a gun and shoot it, but the control scheme to grab the gun, also really irritating. You're trying to grab the gun, you might accidentally grab the guy and pull him towards you because all the buttons kind of do the same thing. So in the heat of battle, you're trying to dodge people, but you're also trying to grab a weapon, and you might accidentally grab the wrong thing, and then you're like, oh my god. So you have to literally go up to the weapon and try and make sure that it's actually targeting the correct thing. Otherwise, you'll target the same thing, or you know, multiple different things, target the wrong thing, and they'll end up getting overwhelmed pretty quickly, which, while leads me to another point. Oh, maybe you should try and thin the herd, you know, maybe stealth it up and do some silent assassinations, you know, executions, things like that. Unfortunately, it seems like there was no moment or upgrade you could get. I wish they'd let you upgrade abilities to the point where you could actually assassinate a big guy or a special unit if you're stealthy. But that was not the case. You can only assassinate the smaller enemies in one hit. Otherwise, so say for example, you have 10 enemies in an area. 4 or 5 of those enemies are bigs or unique enemies. Guess what? You basically have to fight those 5 or stealth around them. The other ones you can stealth out quietly, but it just ruins it. I wish I could take out the whole platoon with just stealth abilities. And I mean, while the stealth abilities are there and I didn't use them as much, they just didn't. All the stealth abilities that were in the game were more like to distract or to get them out of your way or to just basically be invisible and sneak past. There was nothing that really was there that would let you fully stealth the entire area, which led to the combat obviously being quite clunky. And I didn't like how, I know I said it early, but having a block feature would be nice instead of just a dash feature, because a lot of games that are melee focused like this, they usually do have a block feature. And I know someone said, oh, the game told you there's no block, you have to dash. I'm like, yes, that's fine. It can tell me that there isn't one. I'm just saying that I think this game desperately needed a block feature, because you're not going to try and, like, especially considering on PC, to parry its control, or sorry, to dodge its control. So you're tapping control to get out of your way. It's kind of awkward when you got all these buttons kind of like mushed together. So I just think the combat could have been so much more enjoyable. And eventually, once you did get powerful enough and you were just executing guys willy-nilly, the animations for feeding and executing were like, I think there was like 2 per enemy, depending on what kind of enemy you were attacking. One from the front, one from the back. If you were attacking from the back, it would do one thing. Attacking from the front, it would do something else. So it was literally just 2 animations per enemy type, which was not a lot. So after a while, when you're like going through these motions, you see the same animation over and over and over again. But obviously having some, and again, at the beginning of the game, I got annihilated in so many times in these stealth moments. Like, there's so many enemies. It's like my abilities, no matter how many side missions I do, I just can't get this leveled up to the point where these abilities are actually going to save me. I think they did fix a lot of that and balanced it with a patch, but when the game first came out, I definitely will say it was, you know, it was very unfair. Very unfair. And yes, thank you for bringing that up. The price for this was pretty crazy given what we've been given. Yes, I said the price was pretty much in that AAA territory, and considering it felt like it was kind of a you know, somebody in a project had, like, someone started the project and then someone else had to finish it. So it's like they don't know what the person was thinking, so they just added what they interpreted from that. That's what it felt like. It felt like different elements were kind of sewn together and patched together, and it made some sort of Frankenstein's monster thing that technically walks around and does what it's supposed to do, but it just feels like it wasn't really well thought out. So yeah, a little overpriced in that regard. But it's, like I said, it's got this allure. So I'm droning on a bit at this point. This has been a long review, but I feel like there's a lot of things to talk about in this one. So let's summarize at this point all the things about this game. So the game has this great lore, a good story, interesting characters, things that make you want to come back. It's got this nice noir feel. Definitely really, really interesting in that regard. There is a lot to do, a lot of replay value for your money. You know, like I said, you can play through the game multiple times to get different endings and alternate the endings. But at the same time, the combat, The pacing is absolutely atrocious. The map feels empty with very like limited extra content in an action RPG where you're supposed to have side missions, all of this. Very, very bland. Nothing there. Just feels chucked together. Obviously having a, like I said, balancing the abilities not really being super useful. There's just so many things about the game that just kind of bring it back the other direction. So like I said, the best way I could put about it, the game draws you in, but just as much, if not more, pushes you away from it, and it just needed more time. I think being, you know, trading hands the way it did was not a good thing for this game. Obviously, I can appreciate that they tried to push through it and get out a game that was good, or you know, get out a game that was playable and, you know, was actually people could enjoy in the series. But unfortunately, I just don't think it shines as much as it should. Again, it's not. I don't think it's a terrible game at all, and I don't think it's an average game. I think it does. I'd say for the most part, it is more enjoyable than it is bad, because you do get used to some of the bad elements, and obviously they did patch some things, so I want to give them credit for that. But obviously with the price point, it's just kind of hard to actually recommend this game right now. I think it's one of those games that you should wait until it's on like 50% off sale or something like that. Maybe in like 6 months to a year or something, you might be, you know, you might have like a spare 30 hours, you want to fill it with something to do, and you're into this sort of gameplay and this sort of game style or this franchise, then it might be a good time to do it, but I can't really recommend it. Based on a score, I've had a score in mind for a while, and I'm like, is that score going to change? I'll just keep letting it go, and that's where I landed at the end of the day. My score remained pretty much the same right from the get-go, so I'm going to go ahead and give this game a 6 out of 10. It does a lot of things right, and it still is entertaining. I want that to be very clear. It does have an entertaining value to it. It's very deep in the lore. It's very, I feel it's very faithful to its franchise, but I feel like it just got too many things that messed with it. You know, too many dev studios, they tried to push it out. They didn't have enough time, so they gave us something that was relatively empty and kind of mushed together. And for the price point, it's just kind of hard to really say. So no, normally I would probably rate this game something lower, like you know, based on the criteria I've given. It sounds like there's more negative than good, but I gotta say the elements it does well, it does very well, and I think it is interesting enough to kind of overlook it. But a 6 still isn't a fantastic score. I still feel like it's an above average game, in my opinion. I don't think it's like a run-of-the-mill one. I think they do have something special here. I just think a lot of things need to be tweaked. Like I said, I feel like this game would earn a higher score too if it was, like, you know, cheaper, or, you know, there's a few more patches, because the game isn't optimized obviously on PC. But again, those are things that can be fixed with patches. But yeah, I think a 6 is what I wanted to land on. I just didn't feel right giving it like a 4, because I still, or 4 or a 5, because I still enjoyed this game quite a lot, and I was constantly looking forward to coming back to it and continuing it, which is really strange. It's a very kind of mixed bag game, but that's why I wanted to give it a little bit higher, just because I think it didn't deserve to be in the trenches. So I'd say it's an above average game, like I said. Nothing that's going to write home about. Most people are probably going to skip this one, and for good reason. But if you do have interest in this sort of thing and you somewhat liked what you see, like I said, wait it out. Wait it out. It will go on sale. I promise you. They will be adding more content down the line, so I don't know if they're going to drop the price when that content does come out. But, you know, maybe it's best to just wait until both those DLCs come out, or whatever story DLCs come out, and then get it then. And then maybe you'll get like an all-in-one bundle for either the same price that it came out or much cheaper. You know what I mean? They do that all the time. So I'd say that's probably your best bet, is wait till it drops in price with all the content in it. But some people might not even want to do that. I mean, to be honest, having 6 different endings where they don't really change that much. Like, did the ending really change? I'll bet you the boss fight is exactly the same every time you play it. It doesn't matter. You know, I'm not gonna spoil, but you know what I mean? The boss fights throughout the game are gonna remain pretty much the same, I think. Just certain decisions will change the ending. So it's like, okay, if I replay it again, do I have to do the exact same stuff and then just slightly see a different dialogue, or see someone else say something else? You know what I mean? Otherwise, I feel like the blueprints are relatively the same each run. So that's going to be a grindy run to do. And the fact that there's no new game plus or anything like that kind of sucks that you have to do that. I wish there was new game plus or something, or manual saves, so you can at least just, you know, do what you know what I mean. You can make your own save instead of having the you know, wherever they pop you. Because if you do that, look at that, I can load, and there are, I think there were like auto saves throughout. I think there were some. Yeah, see what I mean? These are all kind of in the tail end of the game, so not much I can do. They have like these plops, so I can't go to the halfway through the game if I want it. I've already oversaved it. Anyway, so that's that, guys. Thank you so much. I hope you enjoyed watching. If you did, make sure you leave a like, comment your thoughts below, subscribe if you're new, and make sure you turn on those post notifications with the bell icon so you don't miss anything I put out here on the channel. Be sure to like and follow my socials: Facebook, X, Instagram, Snapchat, and Discord. Those are linked in the description. If you want to get yourself a shirt or hoodie of mine, there's a link in the description. Also in an embedded feature right below the stream. You can scroll down, see some goodies I have there, but ultimately, just go to the website for the full range of products and customization options. Big shout out to all the sponsors, of course: DXRacer, Bones Coffee, Ridge Wallet, Mad Rabbit Tattoo. I use the products daily. Check them out for yourselves with the links in the description. Be sure to use my promo code DANQ8000 to save it. Check it with them. If you guys want to send something to my PO box, there's an address listed for that in the description. Check it out. Send something my way. Anything that gets sent there will be opened in a social post or a live stream, whatever makes more sense for whatever's sent. Finally, be sure to check out and sign up for the Team 8000 membership program if you haven't done so yet. Supports page immensely. 4 tiers, 4 price points. The cheapest entry level option is 99 cents, 99 pence, whatever you want to say. Check it out. It's the easiest way to get into the program, but across various tiers, you will get things like custom badges by your name, custom emojis used in chat, exclusive video and stream access, priority open lobbies, giveaways, discounts, and plenty more. Working our way back up. Hopefully we get to 500 once again. If you guys want to help us get there, support the channel, get some cool perks, you can join that with the link in the description. There's a join button below the stream, also a section on my main channel page as well. If you guys want to gift members or send super chats / super thanks, you can do those with the $ icon that's next to the chat. Click it, you'll get a drop down. If you are gifting, just remember you can do 1 to 50 in a single transaction, but ultimately gift as many as you want through multiple transactions, okay? Thank you guys so much again. Hope you have a great rest of your day, and hopefully we catch you in the next one. We'll see you then. Peace.
Who's the man with the plan? If you feel trouble wildin' wild on these violent and hit you 8,000. Wait a minute, hold that style damn. Goddamn Billy Jack, we still riding, tires flat. I hear them sirens, see shots flying, so we driving, fire back if they ain't vibing. Lie with that, got me dressed up in all black. What up? Hood up and I see them haters try to run with us, they gon' need inhalers. Gotta breathe them hard just like Darth Vader. Players grab your respirators, night invaders get lightsabered. Mask on for the shooters, move like trash to bed intruder. Got that Glock and got them woofers, just press play, I'll keep it moving. Who is not still, you damn fools? Keep it fresh like canned food. There ain't nothing we can't do, so tune into that damn kill. Yeah. It was never, ever a game.